Hey friends, just wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about how it all started here at Happy Gluten Free. Like, how did we go gluten free, and how did I get there, and that kind of thing. So, it all started with my daughter. She was born, and basically, as she started to transition to solid foods, around a year. Um, she kind of started to run into, not gaining weight and, just kind of getting behind on her growth curve and stuff like that. And of course, like, at that age, just over a year old, they're not really like talking a lot, that kind of thing. But um, we struggled for at least 6 months, 7 months, trying to find what was going on. So we were going doctor to doctor to doctor, and everyone had some suggestions. They didn't really know what was going on, and there was a lot of guessing, right? Maybe you've been there, in your situation, and it was really hard, right? Because you know that something's not right, and yet uh, you can't put it into words. And we really felt scared about the fact that we'd seen several different doctors and specialists and hadn't been able to come up with what was going on. And so that was a really difficult time. And, we fortunately, in the seventh month that this had been going on, by now our daughter was getting pretty skinny. And um, so we were pretty scared, and fortunately we happened across a referral to a gastroenterologist at Children's Hospital who saw her and thought he knew what was going on. Ordered a endoscopy, where they kind of look at the small intestine to see what's going on there and check if it might be celiac disease. We hadn't heard of it. None of the doctors we'd seen had mentioned it until this gastroenterologist. Um, and so that's what it ended up being. And so that was a huge sigh of relief to just know what was going on and feel like we had an answer and that we weren't chasing anymore. But it was the beginning of a whole new set of challenges, right? But I think when we reached that point, it was a good feeling for us because we knew what to do, and um, as soon as we started doing it, it started working. And so of course, the things we wanted, when we started out, were just for her to feel normal and grow and thrive and all those things you want to see kids do. And I think what was really hard during that time is just seeing other kids and our other friends and their babies that were same age and stuff, but not having issues, and or at least not that we knew about, right? And people commenting that she's tiny and that kind of thing. God, that was hard. And so I felt like once we knew what was going on, we were really excited for her to sort of get back to that, even though I mean, it kind of sounds superficial. We were excited to see her sort of feeling better and sort of growing and kind of just getting back to normal, right? And it was a huge change for my wife and I too, because that was mentally exhausting, those months, of not knowing what was going on. And we're like trying to chase this down and work full time and raise a baby and our first baby. And we had some other stuff going on. Anyway, it was you know, it felt good for us, and we were ready to sort of try and get back to like our relationship and work and like normal things. And of course, when you go through something like that, nothing ever gets back to normal, right? There is no normal, right? Every day is kind of different, and that kind of thing. But we were just excited for her to and us to kind of get back to the regular routine. And of course, I think what was really hard during that time is that the transition to gluten free, while it was working, and was definitely benefiting her, The challenge was we struggled to find good food, right? Like, we didn't know how to find gluten-free foods. We had eaten breads and pastas. Like, honestly, we ate a lot of carb type wheat-based foods, and so it was really hard to transition to different tastes, different textures, and those things, and make it all work and feel good about it and like enjoy the food. And of course, like going back a minute there, like we decided to just go gluten free as a family, right? Like we didn't want to try to mix everything in the house in the kitchen and deal with that. Like we thought, we can do this too. We're going to learn the ropes so that we can show her how to do it and be um, on the same path, right? And so that's kind of how it started for us. And I'll tell you, it was a real struggle, like not enjoying the foods, and then you go someplace or you cook something and bring it someplace, and people don't like it, and they say it. Um, these cupcakes taste like cardboard, or something like that. And you're like, as if I didn't know that, right? So I was, internally really anxious to, um, not anxious, but just I was felt strongly about trying to prove that wrong, right? And to so like normal took on some additional meetings for me. Like, it wasn't just normal. It was like good. I wanted like what we were doing to not just be like, oh, we're suffering through this. Like, I wanted it to be like, boom, um, this is a good thing, and we're not being held back from anything in life and food and that kind of thing. And so, internally that was, um, you know, that drove me a little bit as well, or burned me a little bit, when I was hearing these comments and stuff. So, we were stuck in a rut though, right? Like we had the same menu, we had the same, um, snacks. It was really hard to sort of break out of that, and we were exhausted from searching for this stuff and work and everything else. Um and I guess I don't totally remember why, if it was a birthday of hers or a comment someone made, but I decided to, it kind of started around a time like my wife was keeping a three-ring binder full of gluten-free information, right? So she had all these foods, and she had, um, you know, pamphlets of information and that kind of thing, um, and it was helpful, right? Like we were getting ready for preschools, and we were getting ready for babysitters, and kind of going through that stuff, and it occurred to me, hey, it would be awesome to just sort of like blow this out and just understand every single food that could be gluten free, right? Because I mean, at this point in time, this is like 2010, um, 2009. There weren't like good gluten free labeling. The top allergens were really all you could expect to be labeled, and so that was just wheat, like barley and rye and stuff. Like, nobody had to list that in the ingredients. And so, and gluten free wasn't as big a deal then, right? Certainly we were fortunate compared to people, decades before us, but we had to do a lot of research. And so that's what I started doing. I basically decided, hey, I'm going to go to the store, and I'm just going to literally look up every food I can find that I would possibly ever want to eat, and even a bunch that I don't want to eat, right? And I'm just going to start looking. And so that was my plan. I got on a track, and it felt good to be doing something, right? Moving forward, and it was expanding our options, right? We were discovering things like Cheetos or gluten free, and just things that you think, like looking at the ingredients on those, like there's no way, but sure enough, and so that was happening. And all that was going on, and I think probably the frustrating things that were happening during that time were just looking at these foods. It was so hard to get a straight answer from some companies, right? So it turns out you see all these different brands in the grocery store. It seems like there's a million different brands. They're all owned by like three companies, right? I mean, that's an exaggeration, but literally, like you start calling all these places or looking up their websites, they're all part of the same companies, and they're just little sub brands. And so that would get hard sometimes because not all companies wanted to, give you a good answer about a food, or they needed a serial number, or um, it wasn't easy, and so that was discouraging sometimes. I remember I was walking around the grocery store one night, and I had my notepad out because this is what I would do: just walk up and down the aisles and write down what foods, or I would see, and then I'd go home and research them. And it was the store manager was following me around. I mean, it said store manager on their sign, on their um, name tag, and eventually he asked me to leave the store. I guess maybe they thought I was doing some sort of competitive intelligence, or who knows what they thought, but um, wasn't a big deal. But it was just some days, and you're just trying to do the right thing, and it's hard. Um, but I got through it, and what I thought would take a month or two to get this big list together ended up taking about 15 months. And um, by the end of it, I had decided, like, I've got enough stuff here that I want to put this in a book, and that's what I did. That publishing of that book was a whole different trial, but it ended up happening, and that was exciting. But what was more exciting is just the achievement of kind of having like all of these foods, and when I looked back and I started on this journey, I was like, this is the thing that's really going to help us, right? Is just to know more. And sure enough, it was really nice for me to be like the expert on gluten-free foods. Family and friends and stuff would ask, and it was like, yeah, I know that that's gluten-free, or I can look it up, and I can share the book and stuff like that. But I think what really made that process important for me, and out of that whole thing, the book and stuff, is where Happy Gluten Free was born. Just because we wanted to form a business for the publishing of the book, and the blog and all that stuff. But out of that whole process, what really happened is I kind of realized, like, one of the things, like I was talking about before, that was frustrating for me was the whole idea that it was hard to get people to believe that we weren't like suffering by having to be gluten free. That it was fine and it could be good, um, and I think through that whole process, what I really learned is that I had to prove to myself um, that it could be all of the things that I wanted it to be, and that there could be amazing meals, which we cook now, and that we're not like lacking in anything in terms of, um, you know, snacks and cakes and beautiful desserts and fabulous meals and stuff like that. It was really kind of like me having to believe it myself, and I think that's kind of the whole story, behind Happy Gluten Free, is just all of these posts and stuff like that. It's like you're learning, you put this stuff out there because it helps you learn even more deeply, right? And to teach someone else, and you're helping some others, because you see people. I mean, like, we have this group with thousands of members in it, and it's like the questions are always the same. It's um, how do I get started, and the meals aren't that good, and my kids don't like it, and what do I serve, and this is really hard, and it is hard, but it's something that once you have that sort of belief that it's going to be okay, and you've sort of ironed out what meals, what foods, like what snacks. Once you've got that all dialed in, it's like life can really get back to normal again. And that's kind of what we help do here. So thanks for listening. That's the story. And hey, we'll see you again sometime. All right. Join me. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on this channel because we'll be doing this a little more often here on YouTube. So, cheers.